In a particular country, I realize worldwide it would be very hard to do this, but in a particular country, how would you measure the cost to society of illegal drug use vis-a-vis the war on drugs?
Well, certainly we have been able to measure that in broad terms here in the United States. Drug use, particularly drug use with hard drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, have major health consequences, major societal consequences, but so does the war on drugs. Think of the number of people who have been arrested for simple drug possession, mainly possession of marijuana, who now have criminal records. We have a president of the United States who admits he used a variety of drugs when he was younger. What would have happened to Barack Obama if he had been one of the unlucky drug users who ran afoul of the law? He wouldn't have gone to Harvard Law School. He certainly would not have had a political career, much less have been elected president of the United States. Those are all very real societal costs too. We fill our prisons. Something close to 60% of the inmates in federal prison are there for nonviolent drug offenses, mainly trafficking in relatively small quantities. Something close to a third of inmates in state prisons are in there for nonviolent drug offenses. That's a very real societal cost, both the financial cost of housing those people, but also lives that have been distorted and ruined because of that kind of criminal record.
How large is the worldwide market in illegal drugs, and how much of that belongs to the United States?
It's a little hard to estimate an entirely illegal industry. Best estimates are that it's about $320 billion a year. Some estimates are as high as $400 to $450 billion a year. The United States is the single largest consumer of drugs, but the U.S. is not the major growth market in the world. In economic terms, the United States is pretty much a mature market. The drug use rates don't vary all that much anymore. The great growth rates are taking place in Eastern Europe, the states of the former Soviet Union, major portions of the Middle East and Africa. And the Mexican cartels, being innovators, are increasingly trying to penetrate those markets. So this is becoming very much a global problem, not just a U.S. problem or a problem for the U.S. and Mexico.
What about Colombia? I mean, they used to be the front page, and they're not. They've made some changes, and some political changes and some changes in their own policies. But I understand from your book that they actually continue to produce quite a substantial amount of cocaine. And what happened there, and is that an example that Mexico could follow in some way?
Well, advocates of a continued hardline strategy in Mexico and elsewhere point to Colombia as a victory over the drug cartels, and it's true to an extent. The Cali and Medellin cartels that were so powerful in the 1990s were smashed, the drug trade was decentralized, and the overall violence in Colombia declined for a time. But there's more to that story than just a simple equation of strong anti-drug policy leads to victory. The violence in Colombia had two elements, the drug trade and a very strong radical left-wing insurgency. It's the insurgency that has basically declined to the point that the overall level of violence declined. The drug trade went on pretty much as before, and to show you how the notion of Colombia as a model for how to deal with the cartels in Mexico is exaggerated, the CBS program 60 Minutes had a segment on just a little while ago about the super cartel in Colombia, which was supposedly larger than the Medellin and Cali cartels combined, trafficking in billions and tens of billions of dollars in narcotics and money laundering. So if Colombia is a model, I guess I would ask, a model of what? A model of the futility of the war on drugs? Yeah, I would think that's pretty accurate.
So is there another country that's followed the path that you're recommending for the United States? Do we have an example to follow?
There are a number of countries that have adopted portions of the policy that I recommend. The most comprehensive drug policy reform took place in Portugal a little over a decade ago. And the interesting part about that is that it really debunks the allegations of drug war supporters that if we legalize drugs, if we end prohibition, drug use will just explode and drug-related violence will increase dramatically. That simply has not happened in Portugal. What you've seen are very minor changes, and in fact, the level of overall violence in the country has gone down. Portugal has done better with regard to the drug issue than the other members of the European Union that stayed with the standard pro-drug war strategy. And I think that's a very important development, because if people realize that legalization does not lead to a massive increase in drug use, then I think receptivity to real reform, to ending the prohibition strategy, will grow.
What do you tell parents about a future where, as a foreign policy matter, we may decide that it's the best move we can make is to legalize drugs?
I would tell them what my wife and I told our own children, who are now all adults, and that is there are a lot of unwise things that are not illegal, and that they have to make the right kinds of decisions to take responsibility for their own lives and not simply avoid things that are strictly illegal. That's a case of judgment, it's a case of character, and that is the job of parents, to inculcate those values as much as humanly possible.
So tell us about the book. What got you interested in this topic, and what did you hope to accomplish? Your timing is incredible. New York Times has got, I think, 2 or 3 articles in the last couple of days on this very topic. How did you manage to land on the front page, and what were you accomplishing?
Well, this is the second book that I've done on the international phase of the war on drugs. The first one was a book in 2003 published by Palgrave Macmillan with the title Bad Neighbor Policy, Washington's Futile War on Drugs. And most of that book looked at the Andean region, the principal source of cocaine, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and so on. But one chapter was on Mexico, and I was very disturbed by some indications that I saw of rising violence, the rising power of the Mexican drug cartels. And that chapter I titled Mexico, the Next Colombia, ? And as time went on, I kept coming back to Mexico. And then when President Calderon launched his military-led offensive against the cartels and violence exploded, I decided it was time for a book specifically on the drug war in Mexico. And that is how this book came about.
If people want to learn more about your book and your views on the war on drugs, where could they find it?
The fastest website is the Cato Institute website, www.cato, that's CATO.org. And that will list all of my publications and appearances on this and other issues, as well as work done by other Cato Institute scholars on both the domestic and international phases of the war on drugs.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.